Hey guys, tonight we're going to Mexico. December nights, candles flickering in windows, families walking house to house, singing old songs in Spanish. 9 nights of tradition that goes back centuries. But here's what most people don't know: this isn't just about Christmas, it's about something deeper, something that connects entire communities through rejection, hope, and finally, belonging. The story of Las Posadas and why it changed everything for Mexican families. Stay with me on this one. Get comfortable. Pull those blankets up. This is Sleep Story Scribes, and I'm here to help you drift off while we explore beautiful traditions from around the world. If this is your first time here, welcome. Hit subscribe if you want more of these bedtime cultural journeys. And drop a comment. Where are you listening from tonight? What time is it where you are? I love seeing our little global community gathering here in the quiet hours. Chapter 1: A Candlelit Beginning. The Origins of Las Posadas. Picture this: 1500 Mexico, Spanish missionaries arriving with leather bound books and grand plans. They're looking at indigenous celebrations, harvest festivals, winter ceremonies, and thinking, how do we weave Catholic stories into what's already here? They're not trying to erase everything, they're trying to build bridges. And that's where Las Posadas begins, not as conquest, as conversation. These missionaries, mostly Augustinians and Franciscans, they understood something crucial. You can't just impose tradition, you have to plant it where it can grow. So they took the story of Mary and Joseph, pregnant, desperate, searching for shelter in Bethlehem, and they made it walk through Mexican streets, made it knock on Mexican doors, made it real in a way that scripture readings never could be. The genius was the timing. 9 nights, December 16th through Christmas Eve. 9 nights to mirror the 9 months Mary carried Jesus, but also 9 nights that coincided with existing indigenous winter ceremonies. The missionaries weren't replacing traditions, they were translating them, creating something new that honored both worlds. Spanish Catholic devotion meeting Aztec respect for cycles, journeys, community ritual. Close your eyes and imagine those first posadas in colonial Mexico City. Stone churches with thick walls, candles casting dancing shadows, the scent of copal incense mixing with frankincense, Spanish friars teaching Mexican families songs they'd never heard before. In Nombre del Cielo, in the name of heaven, the melody carrying through narrow cobblestone streets as December nights grew longer. But here's what made it stick: the door to door element. See, hospitality was already sacred in Aztec culture. Welcoming strangers, sharing food, opening your home, these weren't foreign concepts. The missionaries just gave them a new story. Mary and Joseph became every traveler, every family in need, every person seeking shelter from the world's harshness. Universal themes wrapped in Christmas narrative. The songs they created? Oh, these songs. Call and response. The pilgrims outside singing their plea. The innkeepers inside singing their rejection. Back and forth, verse after verse, until finally, acceptance. Welcome. Come in from the cold. It wasn't just theater. It was theology you could feel in your throat, in your chest, in your feet as you walked through the darkness. Think about the psychology of it. Every night for 9 nights, you're part of Mary and Joseph's struggle. You feel the sting of rejection, door after door saying no. You carry the weight of uncertainty, the fear of giving birth with nowhere safe to go. And then, when someone finally opens their door, offers their hearth, the relief is collective, communal, deeply emotional. The Spanish called it Las Posadas, the inns, the lodgings, but Mexican families made it their own, added elementos that spoke to their hearts, clay figurines of Mary riding a donkey, Joseph walking beside her with his staff, sometimes real people playing the roles, sometimes just candles carried from house to house, the ritual adapting, growing, becoming authentically Mexican while staying rooted in biblical story. By the 1600s, entire neighborhoods were participating, not just the wealthy Spanish families, but indigenous communities, mestizo families, everyone weaving themselves into this December tradition. The missionary strategy worked because it gave people agency. You weren't just receiving doctrine, you were living it, walking it, singing it, sharing it with your neighbors, becoming part of salvation history yourself. And the children, imagine being 5 years old, carrying a little candle through dark streets, learning these ancient songs by heart. Your grandmother's voice harmonizing with your mother's, your father helping you remember the words. Generation after generation, the tradition embedding itself in family DNA. Not just something you did at Christmas, something that made you who you were. Mexican, Catholic, connected. The first night was always special. December 16th, the beginning of the journey. Families would gather at church for evening mass, then process through the streets by candlelight, that soft glow illuminating faces, creating intimacy in the darkness. Children trying to keep their flames steady, parents humming along to songs their own parents taught them, community forming with each footstep. Picture that anticipation. 9 nights ahead, 9 opportunities to open your door or have it opened for you, 9 chances to experience hospitality and rejection, longing and welcome. The whole Christmas story stretched out, made participatory, turned into neighborhood theater where everyone had a role, where faith became something you walked through, literally, step by step through December nights. What the missionaries created, almost by accident, was a tradition that would outlast empires. Spanish colonialism ended. Mexican independence came and went. Revolutions, wars, migrations, but Las Posadas endured. Because it wasn't really about Spanish Catholicism anymore. It was about Mexican families finding each other in the darkness, creating warmth, building community, making the Christmas story their own story. So as we settle into this December tale, remember that first night, 5 centuries ago. Nervous families learning new songs, children clutching candles, the scent of incense and hope mixing in cold air. Mary and Joseph beginning their journey through Mexican streets, and all the December nights that followed, carrying this beautiful tradition forward, door by door, heart by heart, generation by generation, 9 nights of wonder ahead. Chapter 2, Serenading Neighboring Hearts, the Significance of Song. Here's where Las Posadas gets beautiful. You hear them coming before you see them, voices drifting through the December air, guitar strings catching the cold. These aren't just Christmas carols, they're villancicos, songs that carry centuries of tradition, songs that turn a simple walk through the neighborhood into something sacred, something that connects every voice to every voice before it. Villancicos. The word itself sounds like music, doesn't it? These traditional songs trace back to Spanish folk melodies, medieval courts, monastery chants. But here's what's wild. When they crossed the ocean to Mexico, they transformed, picked up indigenous rhythms, local stories, and new guitar tunings. By the time they reached the cobblestone streets of colonial towns, they were something entirely new, something that belonged to both worlds at once. The guitars, that's where the magic starts. Not fancy instruments, often old ones, worn wood, and loose strings that somehow sound perfect in the night air. The strumming is soft, deliberate. Each chord hangs for just a moment before the next one comes. It's not about showing off, it's about creating space. Room for voices to join, room for the story to breathe, room for Mary and Joseph to find their way. Then the voices layer in, not trained singers, just neighbors, kids, grandparents who've been doing this for decades. Some voices crack with age, some are off key, some barely whisper because it's late and they're tired. But together they create something that would make angels stop and listen, harmonies that weren't planned, but somehow always work out. This is community made audible. This is faith you can hear. The echo, God, the echo. These songs weren't meant for concert halls. They were meant for narrow streets, adobe walls, tile roofs that catch the sound and throw it back. Each note bounces off door frames and window ledges, mingles with footsteps on stone, gets tangled up with December wind. By the time it reaches your ears, it's not just music anymore. It's the whole neighborhood singing. Even the buildings are part of the choir. Picture this, 9 o'clock at night. Most of the world's getting ready for bed. But here come the Posadas, 20, 30 people moving slowly down the street. Candles flickering, voices weaving together. Kids stumbling over words they're still learning. Adults humming parts they remember from childhood. The song carries them forward, gives them courage to knock on the next door, to ask strangers to play along with this ancient game of rejection and welcome. The lyrics? That's where the story lives. Simple words. In nombre del cielo, os pido posada. In the name of heaven, we ask for shelter. But listen closer. These aren't just words. They're Mary's exhaustion, Joseph's desperation, the weight of carrying something precious and finding nowhere safe to put it down. Every family that sings these words knows that feeling, has felt homeless in their own way, has needed shelter they couldn't find. Each verse paints another piece of the picture. The cold night, the long journey, the baby coming, whether there's a room or not. But here's what gets me. The villain Kekos don't just tell Mary and Joseph's story. They make it personal, universal. Everyone who sings them has been turned away from somewhere. Everyone has knocked on doors that didn't open. Everyone has needed kindness from strangers, and sometimes found it, sometimes didn't. The emotional progression, it's subtle, but it's there. Early verses are desperate, pleading. By the middle, there's determination, hope mixed with fear. Then toward the end, joy, recognition, the moment when someone finally says yes, when the door opens and warmth spills out, when strangers become family, if only for one night. The music carries you through all of it, makes you feel every step of the journey, every door, every rejection, every welcome. But the songs aren't performed, they're lived. This isn't a concert, it's participatory theater. Street theater that's been running for 4 centuries. Everyone has a role. The pilgrims who sing the requests, the innkeepers who sing the refusals, the neighbors who watch from windows, the children who learn by doing. Even the dogs who follow the procession have somehow become part of the cast. This is community storytelling at its finest. Now here's where it gets playful. The local community doesn't just sing these songs, they act them out, door by door, house by house. Knock, knock. Can Mary and Joseph stay here? And the answer, for 8 nights running, is always no. But here's the thing, everyone's in on the joke. The people saying no are neighbors, friends. They're playing the part of the mean innkeeper, and they're having fun with it. Some doorkeepers get creative with their rejections. No room here, but they'll say it with a wink. Add little flourishes, make it dramatic. Kids especially love playing the mean innkeeper. It's the one night of the year they get to slam doors and be rude, and everyone thinks it's wonderful. Meanwhile, the pilgrims outside play up their desperation. Ham it up, make it theatrical. Everyone's having fun reimagining this ancient story. But beneath the playfulness, there's real emotion, real recognition, because every family that participates knows what it feels like to be turned away, to be the outsider looking for acceptance, the immigrant needing a place to belong, the teenager kicked out for being different, the elderly person forgotten by their children. The songs make all of that visible. Give it voice. Transform personal pain into communal healing through music and ritual. Watch the faces as they sing. You'll see it. The moment when the story stops being about Mary and Joseph and starts being about them, about us, about every time we've needed shelter and been refused, about every time we've had the power to offer shelter and chose whether to open our door or keep it closed. The villain Chicos don't let you stay comfortable as an observer. They pull you in, make you choose sides. And the build up, God, the build up. 8 nights of rejection, 8 nights of no room here. The whole community getting more and more invested in the story. Kids counting down, adults preparing, everyone knowing that on the ninth night, something special is coming. The songs get more intense, more hopeful. The anticipation builds with every verse, with every door, with every gentle rejection that brings them closer to the final yes. By the time they reach the last few houses on the eighth night, you can feel it, the electricity, the excitement. Tomorrow night, someone will finally say yes. The door will open, the pilgrims will be welcomed, and all these voices that have been building the story, song by song, night by night, will finally get to sing the celebration. But we're not there yet. Tonight, there's still one more door to try, one more gentle rejection to endure. Chapter 3, Rituals at Dusk, the Candlelight Procession. 6 o'clock, December evening in Guadalajara. The sun's almost gone, painting everything amber. Families start gathering in the plaza. Grandmothers in rebozos, kids bouncing on their toes, teenagers pretending they're too cool, but secretly excited. Everyone's got the same thing, a candle, unlit for now. But in a few minutes, this whole neighborhood's going to transform into something magical, something that's been happening every December night for over 400 years. The first match strikes, then another, and another. Watch how it spreads, like a wave of tiny flames moving through the crowd. Kids hold their candles with both hands, concentrating so hard their tongues stick out. Their abuelas steady the little ones, making sure no wax drips on Sunday clothes. The air smells like paraffin and anticipation. Everyone's whispering, but you can feel the excitement building. This isn't just lighting candles, this is lighting the path for Mary and Joseph. Here's what gets me about this tradition. Every single candle represents hope. Mary and Joseph walking through the dark, searching for shelter, turned away again and again, but they kept going because they had light to guide them. Now, centuries later, Mexican families hold that same light, pass it down to their children, create this river of flame flowing through their neighborhoods. It's beautiful. Yeah, but it's also this deep connection to faith, to community, to never giving up. The procession begins to move, slowly, no rush. This isn't a parade, it's a prayer in motion. The oldest woman in the barrio steps forward first. She's done this for 70 years, knows every cobblestone, every crack in the sidewalk. Behind her, families fall into line naturally, parents holding toddlers, teenagers walking with their friends but staying close to family, everyone moving together like they've rehearsed this dance their whole lives, which honestly they have. The cobblestones catch the candlelight and throw it back up at their faces. Warm yellow light dancing across old stone, colonial buildings with their thick walls and carved doorways. These streets have seen this procession every December since the 1600s. Same route, same songs, same hope, same hope. The buildings seem to lean in like they're part of the celebration too. Windows glow from within. People peer out, some joining the procession, mid walk, grabbing their own candles and stepping into the flowing crowd. Listen to the sounds. Not singing yet, that comes later. Right now, it's footsteps on stone, soft conversations in Spanish, kids asking when they'll start knocking on doors, the gentle whoosh of 100 candles flickering in the evening breeze. Someone's rosary clicks quietly. A baby fusses for a second, then settles. This is community in its purest form. No phones out, no distractions, just people walking together, carrying light through the darkness, continuing a story that started over 2,000 years ago. The youngest kids don't fully understand the religious significance yet. For them, this is adventure, magic. They're walking with fire in their hands, while the grown-ups tell them stories about a pregnant lady and her husband looking for a place to sleep. But watch their faces in the candlelight. They get that this is important, special. They hold their candles like treasures. Some blow them out accidentally and panic until an adult relights them. The flame always comes back. The elders remember when this procession was smaller, when their neighborhood was mostly dirt roads and simple houses. Now there are cars parked along the route, streetlights mixing with candlelight, but the heart of it hasn't changed. Still the same devotion, still families walking together, creating this moving constellation of faith and tradition. The grandmother who started the procession, she learned this from her grandmother, who learned it from hers, an unbroken chain of women carrying light. Here's something beautiful. Nobody's checking their phone for directions. They know where they're going. This route is muscle memory, passed down like a family recipe, left at the corner store, past the blue house with the ceramic tiles, down the narrow street where the bougainvillea hangs over the walls, each turn bringing them closer to the first door they'll approach, the first house where they'll sing the ancient songs, asking for shelter, knowing they'll be turned away. But that's part of the story. The candles create this bubble of warmth around each family. December in Mexico can get chilly, especially after sunset, but walking close together, candles flickering between them, everyone stays warm. Physical warmth, sure, but something deeper too, spiritual warmth, the comfort of ritual, of belonging to something bigger than yourself. Kids press closer to their parents. Couples walk hand in hand. Extended family members catch up with each other. The procession becomes this moving family reunion, lit by candlelight. Think about what these candles represent beyond the obvious. Light in darkness, yes, but also persistence. Mary and Joseph didn't give up after the first rejection, or the second. They kept walking, kept asking, kept believing they'd find shelter. That's what Las Posadas teaches: resilience, faith, community support during hard times. Every family in this procession has faced their own dark nights, their own closed doors, but they keep walking, keep carrying the light, keep believing dawn will come. The wax drips steadily now, little drops hitting the cobblestones, creating tiny white dots that'll be swept away tomorrow. But tonight, they mark the path, evidence of this sacred journey. Some families have special candle holders, metal cups with handles that catch the wax. Others just hold their candles bare, letting the warm wax coat their fingers. It becomes part of the experience. The slight burn, the mess, the constant attention needed to keep the flame alive. As the procession moves through different neighborhoods, more people join. Families step out of their houses with their own candles, adding their light to the growing constellation. It's organic, natural. No one's organizing this growth, it just happens. Like the tradition itself, spreading from house to house, family to family, generation to generation. By the time they reach the first door, what started as maybe 50 people has become 100, 200, a community united in candlelight. The anticipation builds with every step. Kids whisper about which house will be first. Will it be the red one with the iron gate? The corner house with the lemon tree? Adults know the route by heart, but they let the mystery build for the little ones. Part of the magic is not knowing exactly when the singing will start, when they'll form their circle, raise their voices, and begin the ancient call and response that turns neighbors into pilgrims seeking shelter. The candles have burned down halfway now. Some families brought extras, knowing the procession would last hours. Others carefully tend their single flame, cupping hands around it when the breeze picks up. Children whose candles went out walk closer to adults, sharing the light. No one gets left in darkness. That's the point, really. Community care, shared responsibility, making sure everyone has light for the journey, even when individual flames falter. Especially when individual flames falter. Up ahead, someone raises their hand. The signal. They've reached the first house. The procession slows, then stops. Families gather in a semicircle around the chosen door, candles held high. Children push gently to the front so they can see. The singing is about to begin. The asking, the ritual rejection, the first of many doors that will close tonight before one finally opens. But that's tomorrow's story. Right now, in the candlelight, surrounded by neighbors and family, the ancient words are ready to be sung. Chapter 4. 9 Doors of Devotion. Picture this: December evening in Mexico, warm candlelight flickering against adobe walls. A procession forms, children dressed as angels, adults carrying lanterns, everyone singing softly. Tonight they'll knock on 9 doors, 9 refusals, then finally acceptance. But here's what most people miss about Las Posadas. It's not just about Mary and Joseph anymore. It's about every person who's ever needed shelter, every family searching for home. The first door, a small house with blue shutters. The procession approaches, voices rising in traditional song. En nombre del cielo os pido posada. In the name of heaven, we ask for shelter. The door stays closed. A voice from inside responds with the scripted refusal. No sean malvados, tengan caridad. Don't be mean, have charity. But no, not tonight. 8 more doors to go. The crowd moves on, still singing. What strikes you first is how the children handle rejection. 6-year-old Maria holds her paper star steady. Little Carlos adjusts his shepherd's costume and keeps walking. They know the script by heart. They know tonight's no isn't personal, it's practice. Practice for life's bigger rejections. For doors that close on dreams, on hopes, on basic human needs. The mariachi guitar strums softly behind them, patient, persistent, ready for door number 2, door 2, 3, 4. Each rejection sounds different. One homeowner plays stern but kind. Another acts genuinely annoyed. A third door doesn't even open, just a voice calling through the wood. No hay lugar, no room. The crowd doesn't get discouraged. If anything, they get louder, more joyful, because they know something the people behind closed doors don't yet understand. Rejection is temporary, community is forever. 5 doors left to visit tonight. By door 5, something magical happens. The singing grows stronger. Not desperate, confident, like they're carrying some secret the whole neighborhood will soon share. Senora Elena plays her role perfectly, shaking her head through the window. Ya se pueden ir y no molestar. You can leave now and stop bothering us, but she's smiling as she says it. Everyone knows she's already prepared hot chocolate for later. That's the beautiful contradiction of Las Posadas. Door 6 brings out the theatrical neighbors. Senor Martinez practically shouts his refusal, arms waving, acting offended that anyone would disturb his evening. The kids giggle behind their angel wings. They've seen this performance before. Last year, he was even more dramatic. 3 years ago, he forgot his lines completely and just stood there laughing. But tradition is tradition. He slams his door with exaggerated force. The procession moves on, still singing, still hoping. 7 doors down, 2 to go. The crowd's getting bigger now. Neighbors who already said no are quietly joining from behind, bringing their own candles, their own voices. That's how Las Posadas works. You reject the pilgrims, then become one yourself. By the time they reach door 8, what started as maybe 20 people has grown to 40, 50. The whole street is moving together now. One giant, patient, hopeful parade through the darkness. Door 8. The Hernandez family really commits to the bit. They peek through curtains, whisper loudly to each other about these strangers at their door. Their teenage daughter rolls her eyes but plays along. Aquí no es mesón, sigan adelante. This isn't an inn, keep moving. The rejection stings a little less each time. Or maybe the song just gets sweeter. Either way, everyone knows they're almost there. One more door, one more chance, one more no before the yes. Door 9. This is it, the final house. But wait, the crowd slows down. Someone adjusts a costume. Someone else retunes a guitar. Nobody wants this moment to end. 9 doors represent 9 months. 9 months of waiting, of growing, of hope building in the darkness. Mary carried Jesus for 9 months before finding shelter. Tonight, this community has carried each other through 9 rejections. Now they stand together at the last door, ready for whatever comes next. The knock at door 9 sounds different, gentler, more hopeful. The song begins again, but softer now, more intimate. Venimos rendidos desde Nazaret. We come exhausted from Nazareth. Inside, the designated host family waits. They've been preparing all week, tamales steaming, hot chocolate warming, piñatas hanging from trees in the backyard. But first, they have to play their part. One last beautiful rejection. Pues si es una reina quien lo solicita. Well, if it's a queen who asks, the pause feels eternal. Children hold their breath. Adults grip their candles tighter. Even the mariachi guitar goes quiet. This is the moment everything changes. From outside the door, voices rise in the final verse. No conocemos, we don't know you. But wait, something shifts in the response. The voice inside grows warmer. Recognition dawns. Eres tú, Jose? Tu esposa es Maria? Is that you, Joseph? Your wife is Mary? The door handle turns, slowly, beautifully. Finally, the door swings open. Light spills out onto the street like honey. Warm faces appear in the doorway, arms spread wide. Entran santos peregrinos. Enter, holy pilgrims. The crowd erupts, not in triumph, in relief, pure overwhelming relief. Kids run forward, adults embrace, strangers become family. All those rejections, all that patient waiting, led to this single moment of acceptance. This is what Las Posadas teaches. Persistence creates miracles. Community conquers closed doors. What happens next is controlled chaos. Beautiful, joyful chaos. The narrow street fills with celebration. Guitars appear from nowhere. Voices blend in harmony. Children who played angels all evening suddenly become children again, racing toward the backyard where piñatas wait. But the adults linger in the doorway. They understand something deeper happened here. 9 doors taught them patience. The 10th door taught them grace. Both lessons they'll carry long after tonight ends. Inside the host family's home, tables overflow with food that's been hours in the making. Tamales wrapped in corn husks, ponche navideño warming on the stove, fresh tortillas still steaming, but nobody rushes to eat. They're too busy hugging, too busy laughing, too busy processing what just happened. Strangers knocked on doors tonight. Friends opened the final one. That transformation from rejection to acceptance, from outsider to family, that's the real miracle of Las Posadas. The piñatas hang from mesquite trees in the backyard. Traditional shapes, a star, a donkey, bright colors against the dark December sky. Children line up, blindfolded, spinning in circles. But watch their faces. Even the smallest ones understand tonight wasn't really about candy. It was about doors opening when you need them most, about communities that catch you when you fall, about the difference between being rejected and being truly unwelcome. 9 doors said no. 1 door changed everything. Late into the night, voices drift across the neighborhood. Soft conversation, gentle laughter, the sound of dishes being washed by many hands. Tomorrow, families will return to their separate houses. But something's different now. The people who closed their doors earlier, they're not the same people washing dishes together now. They've been transformed by the ritual of rejection and acceptance. That's how Las Posadas works. It changes everyone involved. Even the ones who say no eventually become the ones who welcome home. Chapter 5. Echoed Tales, Personal Stories Behind the Tradition. The best stories about Las Posadas, they come from people who've lived them. Doña Carmen sits by her fireplace, hands wrapped around hot chocolate. She's 83, been part of these processions since she was 5 years old. Her voice gets soft when she talks about those December nights, the candles flickering, voices singing in the dark. These are the stories that matter, the ones passed down in whispers. Carmen remembers 1952, 9 years old, holding her little brother's hand as they walked through the neighborhood. Back then, every door they knocked on, people knew the songs, really knew them, not reading from papers. The melodies came from their hearts. She says, you could hear the entire community singing 3 blocks away, that harmony rising up into the cold night air. Something about those voices together, it gave her chills every single time. What gets to her most? The smell of masa in every kitchen. Her neighbor Maria would start preparing tamales at dawn. The scent would drift through windows, mixing with wood smoke from chimneys. Carmen still closes her eyes and can smell those December nights. Warm corn masa, red chiles, that particular sweetness of hot atole. She says modern kitchens don't smell the same. Everything's different now. But the memories, those stay exactly as vivid as ever. Don Roberto has stories too. 78 years of Las Posadas. He played Joseph 12 times when he was young, wearing his father's brown robe, leading Mary through the streets. The responsibility felt enormous back then. He was carrying the Holy Family. People would touch his shoulder for luck. Kids would follow behind, trying to walk exactly like him. That slow, reverent pace through the neighborhood. He still dreams about those nights sometimes, still feels that weight of honor. Roberto remembers one year, 1968, maybe 1969, when it rained, not just drizzling, really coming down. Half the community wanted to cancel, but his grandmother, Abuela Rosa, she wouldn't hear it. Mary and Joseph didn't have umbrellas, she said, so they went anyway. 40 people, soaked to the bone, singing in the rain, their voices echoing off wet pavement. When they finally found shelter, everyone was crying, from the cold, from the beauty of it all. The children's faces, that's what Rosa Elena notices most. She's been organizing Las Posadas for 30 years, watching generations grow up with this tradition. She says kids today get just as excited as they did in the 1980s, maybe more, because everything else moves so fast now. But those 9 December nights, time slows down. Kids learn patience. They learn community. They learn that some things are worth walking slowly for, worth singing the old songs for. Elena's own daughter, now 25, still comes back every December, brings her boyfriend, who's learning the Spanish songs phonetically. Elena watches him stumble through the verses, sees how seriously he takes it. That's what Las Posadas does, she says. It pulls people in, makes them part of something bigger than themselves. Her daughter taught him the gestures, the right way to hold the candles, tradition passing to someone completely new. The evolution surprises everyone. Father Miguel has been blessing these processions for 15 years. He says families add their own touches now. LED candles mixed with real ones, smartphones recording the songs for grandparents who can't walk anymore, kids wearing costumes from Halloween mixed with traditional robes. It should feel wrong, he admits, but somehow it doesn't. The heart remains the same. The seeking, the waiting, the final welcome, that part never changes. 8-year-old Sophia talks about her favorite part. Not the piñata, though she loves that too. Not even the tamales. It's when they're walking between houses, the quiet moments between songs. When everyone's just walking together, candles flickering, breath visible in the cold air. She feels connected to something ancient. Those are her exact words. Connected to something ancient. 8 years old, and she gets it. The continuity, the thread that runs through generations of December nights. Her brother Carlos, 10, prefers the dramatic moments when they reach that first door, the rejection. He takes his role seriously, throwing real emotion into those disappointed faces when the innkeeper says no room. Last year he actually cried during the fourth rejection, not because anyone told him to, because he felt Mary's exhaustion, Joseph's worry. His mom found him afterward, asked if he was okay. They just needed a place to sleep, he whispered. 12-year-old Anna has been Mary twice now. She says the hardest part isn't memorizing the songs, it's the walking. Really slow, careful steps while everyone follows behind, feeling responsible for the whole procession. But when they finally reach that last house, when the door opens wide and voices call out, "Welcome," her whole face lights up talking about it. That moment when rejection turns to acceptance, when wandering becomes homecoming, when community reveals itself completely, The teenagers help with logistics now, setting up chairs, organizing the food, making sure elderly neighbors have warm jackets. 16-year-old Diego admits he thought it was boring when he was little, just a lot of walking and singing. But now, he sees how his grandparents' eyes light up during those songs, how Mrs. Herrera, who's 90, still knows every verse by heart, how little kids look up to the teenagers like they're celebrities. Responsibility feels different at 16. Behind the scenes, that's where the real magic happens. 3 days before Las Posadas begins, kitchens transform. Isabel and her sisters start shopping, planning, coordinating who brings what. They've been doing this dance for 20 years. Isabel handles masa, Carmen makes the filling, Rosa manages drinks. By December 15th, their freezers are packed with tamales, their pantries stuffed with chocolate and cinnamon, everything ready to welcome strangers as family. The house preparation feels sacred too. Moving furniture to make room for 40 people, setting up tables for the feast that follows each procession, stringing lights, arranging flowers, making sure there are enough chairs for everyone. Isabel's husband teases her about the frenzy, but he's hanging decorations, testing the sound system, making sure the coffee stays hot. Everyone understands. When community comes to your door, you make space, however much it takes. The night before the first procession, Isabel barely sleeps, not from worry, from anticipation. Tomorrow night, voices will fill her street, candles will flicker past her windows, children will knock on her door, singing those ancient requests for shelter, and she'll say no 8 times, yes on the ninth. Play her part in this beautiful, heartbreaking, hopeful story. The same story her grandmother told, the same story her daughter will carry forward, time folding in on itself. These personal stories weave together into something larger. 9 nights of seeking and finding, of doors that close and doors that open, of communities that gather in the cold December air to remember what welcome really means. Each family adds their own thread to this tapestry, their own voice to these ancient songs, their own hospitality to this endless story of shelter, warmth, and the miracle of making room for what matters most. Chapter 6, Novenario, Finding Peace in Piety. There's something different about Mexican homes during these 9 days before Las Posadas begins. You walk in and feel it immediately. The air's thicker somehow, quieter, like the whole house is holding its breath in anticipation. It's not just the candles burning in the corner or the small nativity scene on the kitchen table. It's deeper than that. This is the Novenario, 9 days of prayer that transform ordinary families into something sacred, something genuinely holy. Picture a small adobe house in Guadalajara. December 15th, first day of the Novenario. Abuela Rosa lights 3 white candles, places them carefully next to the wooden Mary and Joseph figures her grandmother carved decades ago. The family gathers. No phones, no television, just presence. Her grandchildren fidget at first. They're not used to this stillness, but something about the candlelight, the hushed voices, the weight of tradition, it settles them, makes them listen, makes them feel connected to something ancient. The prayers begin softly, almost whispered. Abuela's voice carries the rhythm passed down through 5 generations. Dios te salve, Maria, llena eres de gracia. Her daughter joins in. Then her son-in-law, stumbling slightly over the Spanish he learned later in life. The children mouth along, not understanding every word, but feeling the melody, the power of it. This isn't performance. This isn't show. This is family DNA expressing itself through prayer, through shared breath, through collective hope. Each night builds on the last. December 16th, December 17th. The prayers get deeper, more natural. Little Miguel stops squirming, starts crossing himself at the right moments. His sister Elena begins whispering the responses she's memorized. The candles burn lower each evening, but the faith burns brighter. You can see it in their faces. This quiet transformation happening. Not dramatic, not sudden, but real, like watching plants grow, invisible until suddenly, there it is. Something's changed. The living room becomes sacred space. During the day, it's ordinary. Kids doing homework, adults watching telenovelas. But after dinner, when Abuela brings out the rosary beads worn smooth by decades of fingers, everything shifts. The couch becomes a pew. The coffee table becomes an altar. The worn carpet becomes holy ground. It's amazing how prayer does that. Takes the mundane and makes it sacred. Takes a regular Tuesday evening and turns it into something that connects you to eternity. December 19th, fifth day of prayer. Something's happening to the rhythm of the house. Mornings feel different. Quieter conversations over breakfast. Less rushing around. The anticipation is building. Yes, but it's not anxious anticipation. It's peaceful, reverent, like the whole family is preparing for something beautiful. The prayers have created this bubble of calm, this pocket of grace in the middle of December chaos. School projects can wait. Work stress fades. This is what matters. Abuela Rosa's voice carries memories. When she prays for Mary and Joseph, she's also praying for her husband, who died 3 years ago, for her son, living in Los Angeles, who can't come home for Christmas, for neighbors struggling to pay rent. The novenario isn't just about the nativity story, it's about carrying each other, about weaving personal pain and hope into ancient words, about believing that somewhere, somehow, prayers echo beyond these walls, beyond this moment. The children are changing too. Elena, who's normally glued to her phone, sits perfectly still during prayer time. Miguel, who has ADHD and never stops moving, finds peace in the repetitive rhythm. Ave Maria, Ave Maria. Their bodies sync with the ancient words. Their breathing slows. Their minds quiet. This is meditation without calling it meditation. This is mindfulness wrapped in tradition. This is spiritual practice disguised as family time. And it's working. You can see it working. You can see it working. Tonight's dive to bro. December 21st, seventh day. The prayers feel like muscle memory now. Natural, necessary, like breathing. Abuela doesn't need to remind anyone when it's time. They just know. Bodies start drifting toward the living room after dinner. Phones get set aside without being asked. Candles get lit automatically. This is what tradition does. It creates containers for the sacred. It makes space for what matters. It turns ordinary families into spiritual communities without anyone thinking too hard about it. The house holds their prayers in the walls, in the air, in the spaces between words. During the day, when everyone's scattered to work and school, you can still feel it. The residual peace, the lingering presence of all those whispered Hail Marys. It's like the prayers have soaked into the foundation, made this ordinary house into something holy, something protected, something blessed. The neighbors feel it too. Stop by more often. Stay longer. Something about this place draws people in. December 22nd, 8th day. Almost there. The excitement is building now, but it's different from Christmas morning anticipation. It's deeper, more grounded. This isn't about presents or parties. This is about completion, about finishing something sacred together, about the satisfaction that comes from keeping a promise to ancestors, to faith, to each other. The prayers feel heavier tonight, more important, like they're carrying the weight of all 8 previous nights, building towards something beautiful. Abuela Rosa's eyes are brighter these days, clearer, like the prayers have polished away the cloudiness that grief sometimes brings. Her grandchildren hang closer to her during the day, ask questions about the old stories, about great grandmother's candles, about what the words mean, about why their voices sound different when they pray together. They're hungry for this connection, this sense of belonging to something bigger than themselves, something that started long before them and will continue long after. The 9th day approaches like dawn, December 23rd. Tomorrow night, Las Posadas begins. The processions, the singing, the joyful chaos of community celebration. But tonight is still quiet, still intimate, still just family and candlelight and whispered prayers. This is the foundation everything else is built on. This peace, this preparation, this 9-day journey inward that makes the outward celebration possible, makes it meaningful, makes it more than just a party, makes it prayer in motion. You can feel the shift happening in their voices, in their posture, in the way they hold each other's hands during the final prayers. The novenario has done its work, softened hearts, quieted minds, created space for the sacred in the middle of ordinary life. These aren't the same people who started praying 9 days ago. They're deeper somehow, more connected to each other, to their faith, to the story they're about to step into, the story of seeking shelter, of hospitality, of hope. December 23rd, final night of the novenario. The prayers feel complete now, full, like a circle closing, like a promise kept. Abuela Rosa blows out the candles more slowly tonight, lets the smoke curl upward, carrying their intentions, their gratitude, their readiness for what comes next. The children don't rush away when prayers end. They linger, sensing this transition, this moment between the quiet preparation and the joyful celebration, between the intimate and the communal, between the sacred and the social. Tomorrow night, they'll step outside, join the procession, sing the ancient songs, knock on doors, ask for shelter. But tonight, they've found something else, something equally precious. They've found shelter in each other, in tradition, in the quiet power of prayer shared across generations. The novenario ends, but what it created continues in their hearts, in their home, in the way they'll carry this peace into the celebration ahead. Ready now, prepared, connected to something eternal and beautiful. Chapter 7, Scent of Celebration, a Feast of Flavors. The kitchen comes alive hours before the procession begins, steam rising from clay pots, masa being kneaded by hands that learned this rhythm from their mothers who learned it from theirs. The scents, they're not just cooking smells, they're memory triggers, cinnamon and anise floating through the air. Each family has their secret touch, their abuela's whispered ingredient that makes everything taste like home. Walk into any Mexican household during Las Posadas and you'll smell it immediately. That warm, rich sweetness that means celebration is coming. It starts early, sometimes before dawn. Tia Rosa grinding corn, her sister sorting dried chiles, the youngest cousin, maybe 7 years old, standing on a wooden stool, watching every move, learning without being taught. This is how traditions survive, through kitchen apprenticeships that feel like play. The tamales take longest. Always start with the tamales, masa harina, mixed with lard until it's light, fluffy, almost cloud like when you press it between your fingers. Then comes the filling, pork that's been simmering in red chili sauce for hours, or chicken with green salsa. Some families do cheese and jalapenos for the kids, each tamal wrapped tight in corn husks, little presents that'll steam together while the procession happens outside. Listen, you can hear the kitchen working, the steady thump of masa being pressed, corn husks rustling as they're sorted, the good ones separated from the torn ones, someone laughing as chili gets stuck under their fingernails. Again, the radio playing softly, maybe Vicente Fernandez or some old bolero. This soundtrack, it's as traditional as the recipes themselves. Music that makes the work feel like celebration instead of chore. Buñuelos come next. These delicate, crispy rounds that shatter at first bite. The dough rolled paper thin, so thin you can almost see through it. Into hot oil they go, puffing up like golden bubbles. Then a dusting of cinnamon sugar while they're still warm. Some families make them big as dinner plates. Others prefer them small, bite-sized pieces of sweetened heaven. Either way, they never last long once the kids discover where they're hiding. The chocolate? Now that's where each family's personality really shows. Some use tablets of Ibarra, that grainy spiced Mexican chocolate that froths up thick when you whisk it. Others go old school, grinding cacao beans with cinnamon and sugar on a medite, that volcanic stone that's been smoothing ingredients for centuries. The smell of warm chocolate mixing with chili powder, it's Christmas morning, and comfort food all rolled into one. Ponche navideño simmers on every stove. This warm fruit punch that's basically winter in a cup. Guava and tecocotes, those little yellow fruits that taste like apples crossed with pears. Cinnamon bark, not powder, the actual bark bobbing in the pot. Sugar cane pieces adding sweetness. Some add a splash of rum for the adults. The kids get theirs plain, but they don't mind. It tastes like celebration either way. Every surface in the kitchen gets covered. Cooling racks loaded with buñuelos, tamales standing upright in huge steamers, bowls of salsa, red and green, mild and fiery, fresh tortillas keeping warm under dish towels. This isn't just cooking, it's preparation for an army. Because when the procession ends and everyone crowds into your house, hungry from walking and singing, you need enough food to feed the neighborhood. And somehow, there always is. The younger women learn by watching. Abuela doesn't measure anything. Her hands know exactly how much salt, how much cumin. She pinches spices between her fingers like she's reading Braille. Así, like this, she says, showing her granddaughter the exact wrist motion for rolling masa. These aren't just recipes being passed down, they're love languages, ways of saying this is who we are. This is how we celebrate. This is home. The men get drafted for the heavy lifting, moving tables, setting up chairs in the courtyard, stringing lights between the trees. But they keep wandering back to the kitchen, drawn by those smells, hoping for a taste test. Just one buñuelo, mi amor. Maybe a small tamale. They get shooed away with wooden spoons, but not before someone slips them something sweet. Kitchen privileges earned through years of good behavior and careful compliments. Each dish tells a story. The pozole recipe came from Guadalajara with great-grandmother Elena. The way they fold tamales, that's pure Oaxaca technique, learned from a neighbor 60 years ago. The buñuelos get drizzled with piloncillo syrup because that's how they made them in the old village, before anyone had refined sugar. Food becomes time travel, each bite connecting you to people you never met, but somehow know through their recipes. By afternoon, the house smells like a festival, every room touched by cinnamon and chili, steam escaping from pot lids. The windows fog up from all the cooking. Someone's always wiping them clean so they can watch for the first pilgrims approaching. Kids start getting restless, not because they're bored, but because those smells are making them crazy with anticipation. How much longer, Mama? Soon, mijo, soon. The final preparations happen as darkness falls. Last minute taste tests, more salt in the salsa, another pinch of oregano in the pozole, fresh tortillas coming off the comal, that flat griddle that never quite gets clean, but somehow makes everything taste better, serving spoons laid out, paper plates if it's a big crowd, the good dishes if it's intimate family. Either way, the food tastes like love, like tradition, like coming home. When the procession arrives, when those voices start singing outside your door, the kitchen goes into final mode. Lids come off pots. Tamales get unwrapped from their steamy corn husk blankets. Buñuelos arranged on platters. Hot chocolate ladled into cups. The transformation is beautiful, all that quiet preparation suddenly becoming a feast. All those hours of work dissolving into moments of pure hospitality. This is what Las Posadas taste like. The sharing begins before anyone even sits down, plates passed from hand to hand. Try the tamales, they're Rosa's recipe. Have you had the buñuelos yet? Everyone becomes a food ambassador, proud of their contribution, eager to taste what others brought. Strangers become friends over shared pozole bowls. Children dart between adults, chocolate on their faces, crumbs in their hair. This is community built one meal at a time. Later, much later, when the last guest has gone home with leftover tamales wrapped in foil, when the dishes are finally clean and the kitchen quiet again, the scents linger in the curtains, on everyone's clothes, in their hair. Tomorrow they'll start planning the next night's menu because Las Posadas lasts 9 nights, and each one deserves its own feast. Each one deserves this kind of love, served warm, shared freely, remembered forever. Chapter 8: Piñatas and Poinsettias, Symbols of Joy. So we've made it through 7 nights of wandering, 7 nights of knocking on doors, singing the same songs, getting turned away. And now comes the part every kid's been waiting for. The moment when all that spiritual symbolism gets smashed to pieces with a wooden stick. And trust me, there's something deeply satisfying about watching children destroy things in the name of religious celebration. Picture this. It's late evening. The posada has found its welcome. Everyone's gathered in the courtyard. Kids are bouncing on their toes, and hanging from a rope above them, this massive star-shaped piñata. 7 points reaching out like frozen fireworks, and bright tissue paper covering whatever treasures are hidden inside. The adults are smiling because they know what's coming, the chaos, the pure, beautiful chaos of childhood unleashed on papier-mâché. Now here's where it gets interesting. That 7-pointed star isn't random decoration. Each point represents one of the 7 deadly sins: pride, greed, wrath, envy, lust, gluttony, sloth, all hanging there in bright paper and paste, waiting to be destroyed. Because that's the symbolism, the breaking of the piñata, that's good conquering evil, light defeating darkness, and the candies spilling out, those are the rewards for staying faithful. Pretty heavy stuff for a kid's game. They blindfold the first child. Usually the youngest gets to go first. Spin them around 3 times. Hand them a stick. Point them in the general direction. And chaos. Pure chaos. The kid swings wild, misses completely. Everyone laughs. The piñata sways mockingly overhead. Other kids are shouting directions: left, no, right, higher. But the blindfold makes everything impossible. It's like trying to hit a ghost, a very colorful, candy filled ghost. Each child gets their turn. Some swing methodically, others go wild, spinning in circles. The adults watch nervously when the little ones get the stick. Property damage is always a possibility, but that's part of the fun. The anticipation builds with each miss. The piñata teases them, swaying just out of reach. And the crowd, they're loving every second, cheering for solid hits, groaning at near misses, building the tension until crack, direct hit. The piñata splits. Not completely, just enough to leak promises. A few candies tumble out. The crowd goes wild, but it's not broken yet. Still hanging, still taunting. The next kid steps up with renewed determination. They know it's wounded now. Vulnerable. One more good hit, and all those treasures will rain down. The anticipation is almost unbearable. Adults are grinning. Kids are practically vibrating with excitement. And then, explosion. The piñata finally gives up. Paper tears, rope snaps, and suddenly the air is full of flying candy, chocolate coins spinning like golden UFOs, wrapped caramels bouncing off heads, hard candies scattering across the ground like colorful hail. The sound is incredible, not just the impact, but the immediate scream of joy from 20 kids diving for treasure. Chaos, beautiful sugar-fueled chaos. Kids hit the ground, literally, knees in the dirt, scrambling for every piece of candy they can grab. Little hands stuffing pockets, quick calculations being made. If I grab this chocolate, but that kid gets the lollipop, it's like watching tiny pirates divide up treasure. No sharing, no mercy. Pure survival instinct kicks in when candy hits the ground. The adults watch and remember being that desperate for sugar once upon a time. But watch the adults' faces during this moment. They're not just supervising, they're remembering. Remembering when they were the ones swinging blindly at hanging stars, when candy was the most valuable currency in the world, when the breaking of the piñata felt like magic, like some ancient ritual where sweetness literally fell from heaven. Because in a way, that's exactly what it is. Ancient ritual, dressed up as children's game. Now, while the kids are still sorting through their candy hauls, take a look around the courtyard. See those bright red flowers everywhere? Those star-shaped blooms catching the candlelight? Poinsettias. And yes, they're everywhere for a reason. This isn't just decoration. Beer of Tyrev Inn, that was waters for Miniver Tate near. Thing you five sprek, thing you five sprek, thing you five spreks of Tep. Thing you five sprek, 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 thing you five sprek. These flowers have been part of Mexican Christmas celebrations for centuries, long before they became those plastic-looking things you see in grocery stores every December. The Aztecs called them Quetzalcoatl, used them in ceremonies honoring fallen warriors. The red petals represented blood, sacrifice, honor, but when Spanish missionaries arrived, they saw something different. The star shape reminded them of the Star of Bethlehem. The red color became the blood of Christ. Same flower, completely different meaning. It's fascinating how symbols transform when cultures collide, how something sacred can become sacred again in entirely new ways. Legend says a poor Mexican girl wanted to bring a gift to the nativity scene, but she had nothing. Her cousin told her that any gift given with love would be beautiful, so she gathered roadside weeds, placed them at the altar, and miraculously they transformed into brilliant red poinsettias. The story probably isn't true, but it captures something important: how the simplest offerings can become extraordinary when they come from the heart. Tonight, surrounded by these crimson stars, the piñata ritual feels different, more connected to something ancient: the breaking of the seven deadly sins, the spilling of sweet rewards, the red flowers watching like witnesses. It's all building towards something. Tomorrow is the final night, the ninth Posada, the one where Mary and Joseph finally find shelter, where the wandering ends, where the real celebration begins. The kids are finally done fighting over candy, pockets bulging, faces smeared with chocolate, that slightly manic look sugar gives children. But they're also tired. 8 nights of singing, 8 nights of walking door to door, 8 nights of building anticipation. Tomorrow will be different. Tomorrow, instead of being turned away, they'll be welcomed. The door will open, the journey will end, the real feast will begin. Parents start gathering their sugar drunk children, wiping chocolate from faces, counting candy to make sure everyone got their fair share. The poinsettias seem to glow brighter in the candlelight. The torn remains of the piñata flutter like prayer flags in the evening breeze. Another night complete, another step closer to Christmas, another layer of meaning added to this ancient journey from rejection to acceptance. As families drift home through the quiet streets, candy wrappers rustling in small pockets, the air still sweet with the scent of crushed treats, you can feel it building, the anticipation. Tomorrow night, the ninth posada won't end with disappointment. It won't end with closed doors and turned backs. Tomorrow night, the door opens, the journey ends, and the real celebration, the one they've been building toward for 8 nights, finally begins. Chapter 9, Ninth Night, a Grand Finale, December 23rd. La Ultima Posada, the Last Shelter. 9 nights of wandering, 9 nights of seeking, and tonight everything changes. The whole neighborhood knows what's coming. Kids have been talking about it for weeks. The adults are grinning like they've got secrets. Because tonight's the night when all that beautiful anticipation finally pays off. When the doors don't just open, they swing wide with celebration. You can smell it 3 blocks away. Champorado, Mexican hot chocolate, so thick and rich it's basically dessert soup. Cinnamon and vanilla mixing with the cold December air. Steam rising from huge pots like incense. Abuelita stirring with wooden spoons, worn smooth by decades of Christmas mornings. This isn't just hot chocolate. This is comfort in a cup. Childhood memories brewing, the scent that says, "Welcome home, mijo. Welcome home." The procession starts like always. Mary and Joseph at the front, candles flickering against the darkness. But tonight feels different, heavier somehow, more electric. Kids are practically vibrating with excitement. Adults keep checking their watches, their phones, whispered conversations cut short when little ears get too close, because everyone knows what house they're heading to. Everyone knows tonight's the night. The question isn't if they'll be welcomed, it's how spectacular that welcome will be. They reach the designated house, and this time there's no hesitation, no back and forth, no rejection. The door swings open before they even finish singing. Warm light spills out onto the street. Voices calling entre, entre, come in, arms reaching out to pull the pilgrims inside, children squealing, dogs barking, the sound of chairs scraping, tables groaning under the weight of food. This is what 9 nights of patience gets you. This moment, this explosion of welcome. Inside, it's chaos. Beautiful, overwhelming chaos. 3 generations crammed into rooms that suddenly feel too small for all this joy. Cousins who haven't seen each other since last Christmas. Neighbors who wave from porches but never really talk. Tonight, they're family. Sharing plates, sharing stories, sharing the kind of laughter that makes your cheeks hurt. The kitchen's a symphony of sizzling, chopping, stirring. Everyone's contributing something. Everyone belongs here. But first, the piñata. Not just any piñata. The piñata. 7-pointed star, massive, covered in tissue paper that shimmers like stained glass, filled with, well, that's part of the mystery. Kids form a line, oldest to youngest, blindfolded, stick in hand, 3 swings each, missing wildly, friends shouting directions that make no sense. Left, know your other left. Adults trying not to laugh, the anticipation building with every swing, every near miss, every frustrated groan. Then it happens. Crack. Paper rips, candy explodes everywhere. Kids dive like they're going for loose change. Peppermints rolling under couches. Chocolate coins scattering across tile floors. Little hands grabbing everything in reach. The sound, it's pure sugar-fueled chaos. Giggling, rustling. I got 3 Snickers. Where are the good ones? Adults stepping carefully around the carnage, remembering when they were the ones scrambling for treasure. Time collapses. 9 years old again. While kids sort their candy haul, the real magic happens in the kitchen. Tamales steaming in massive pots, beans simmering, rice with enough saffron to turn it golden, dishes passed down through generations, recipes that exist only in muscle memory, Tia Rosa's salsa that makes grown men cry, Uncle Miguel's carnitas that disappear faster than he can serve them, food made with love, food made for sharing, food that tastes like home. The mariachi arrives right as plates are being filled. 5 guys in black suits with silver buttons, guitars, trumpets, one guy with a guitar and bigger than he is. They launch into Feliz Navidad, and the whole room transforms. Suddenly everyone's singing, even the kids with candy sticky fingers, even the teenagers who were too cool 5 minutes ago. Music has this power. It dissolves self-consciousness, makes strangers into family, makes this moment feel eternal. Between songs, someone starts the stories. Remember when little Carlos got lost during Posadas 3 years ago? Found him asleep under the nativity scene. Or when it rained so hard they had to move the whole procession inside the church. These aren't just memories, they're the threads that weave a community together. Shared experiences becoming folklore. Tonight adding another chapter to the collection. Another story someone will tell in 20 years. Outside, fireworks start popping. Not the professional kind, the kind teenagers set off in empty lots. Bottle rockets whistling into the darkness. Roman candles painting brief flowers of light against the sky. Kids pressed against windows, pointing at every burst. Parents calculating how much sleep they'll lose tonight. Neighbors stepping onto porches to watch. The whole neighborhood celebrating together, even from a distance. Community spelled out in sparks and smoke. As the evening winds down, the energy shifts. Softer now, quieter. Kids crashed on couches, sticky candy residue on their faces. Adults lingering over coffee, not quite ready to let the night end. The mariachi plays one more song, something slow, something that aches a little. Las Mañanitas, maybe, or Cielito Lindo. Voices joining in, harmony happening without planning. the sound of people who belong together, who choose to be family. Then someone suggests they visit the manger, the nativity scene set up in the back room, waiting patiently through all the celebration, candles flickering around the tiny figures. Mary and Joseph finally at rest, the baby in straw that smells like the farm where it grew. Everyone gathers, even the kids who were running wild 10 minutes ago go quiet. Something about this moment demands reverence, demands pause, demands gratitude for shelter found. The prayer happens without coordination. Someone starts, others join. Words in Spanish and English mixing together like ingredients in a recipe passed down through generations. Gratitude for family, for food, for the neighbors who open their doors, for traditions that connect them to something larger than themselves, for the reminder that everyone needs shelter, everyone needs welcome, everyone needs a place to belong. The words rise like incense. People start gathering coats, collecting children, making plans for tomorrow, but nobody really wants to leave. This feeling, this warmth that has nothing to do with the heater running overtime. You can't bottle it, can't save it for later. It exists only in moments like this, when strangers become family, when doors open instead of closing, when the long journey ends not just with arrival, but with celebration, with welcome, with home. La Última Posada ends, but something remains in full bellies and sticky fingers, in new phone numbers exchanged, in promises to get together before next Christmas, in kids who will remember this night when they're adults planning their own celebrations. The tradition continues, not because someone mandates it, but because people choose it. Because after 9 nights of seeking, they found what they were looking for. Not just shelter, community, family, home. Chapter 10. Sacred Lullabies, Leisurely Embracing the Quietness. The courtyard's empty now. Paper decorations flutter in the cool night breeze, piñata fragments scattered on the cobblestones. The last guests have wandered home, bellies full of tamales and hearts warmed by community. But inside these adobe walls, something beautiful happens. This is when Las Posadas becomes intimate, when celebration melts into something deeper, the sacred quiet that follows joy. When families draw close and whisper the old songs that have traveled centuries. Abuela settles into her wooden chair, the one that creaks just so. Her granddaughters curl up at her feet like cats seeking warmth. The boys lean against the wall, suddenly shy after hours of shouting and running. Even the adults move differently now, softer steps, quieter voices, like the house itself is holding its breath. Outside, the December wind whispers through the mesquite trees. But here is where the real tradition lives. In these moments between celebration and sleep, she begins to hum. No words at first, just melody floating through the room like incense. A lullaby her own grandmother sang during Posadas in 1943. The tune older than that, probably older than anyone remembers. The children's eyes grow heavy, but they fight it. They don't want to miss this. The way her voice catches on certain notes, the way she rocks slightly, keeping time with something invisible. This is different from the songs they sang tonight, at doors. This is sacred. Now, words slip in. Spanish so soft it sounds like prayer. Duérmete, mi niño. Duérmete, mi amor. Sleep, my child. Sleep, my love. But she changes the verses, weaves in tonight's story, how they walked from house to house like Mary and Joseph, how they were welcomed, how the community opened its arms. The lullaby becomes tonight's adventure, sung gentle enough for dreams. The children's breathing slows, their eyelids flutter, but they're listening, storing every word. Little Miguel whispers a question. Tell about when you were small, abuela. She smiles. Her fingers find his hair, smoothing it back. When I was 7, during the revolution, we still had posadas. Even with the soldiers in town, your great great grandmother would gather all the children. We'd sing so quietly, whisper the songs. Because music finds a way. Her voice drops lower. The other adults lean in. They haven't heard this story. Wartime posadas. Faith in the darkness. The little ones fight sleep like it's their enemy, eyes snapping open when they start to drift. They know something special is happening. These stories only come out after the celebration, when the house settles into quiet, when Abuela's voice gets that particular softness, when Uncle Carlos stops joking and just listens, when even the teenagers put away their phones. This is the inheritance, not just the food or the songs or the traditions, but these moments, these whispered sacred spaces. Sophia, barely 4, curls up against her mother's shoulder. Her dress still has confetti in the folds. Her small voice joins Abuela's lullaby, half the words wrong, but the melody perfect. 3 generations singing together. The mother remembers being Sophia's age, fighting sleep just like this. The same chair, maybe even the same lullaby. Time folds in on itself during posadas, past and present dancing together. The sacred circle, unbroken, voice carrying voice through decades of December nights. Father Eduardo appears in the doorway, still in his vestments, but moving quietly, respectfully. He's been invited into this sacred aftermath before. He knows not to interrupt, just to witness the way faith lives in families, not in grand churches or formal prayers, but in grandmothers singing children to sleep, in stories passed down like heirlooms, in the gentle way traditions wrap around daily life. He crosses himself silently. This is church too, maybe the most important kind. Abuela shifts to another story, how her sister once got lost during Posadas in 1958, how the whole neighborhood searched with candles, how they found her sleeping in a nativity scene 3 blocks away, curled up next to the wooden sheep. The children giggle sleepily. Their parents exchange glances. They remember being told this same story, different details each time. That's how the best stories work. They grow, they change, they find new meanings in new mouths, living stories for living traditions. The room grows warmer somehow, bodies settling closer, children's breathing deepening, but the stories continue. How Posadas came to their village, how her grandfather built the first altar, how the songs traveled from Spain but changed in Mexican mouths, became something new, something theirs. The lullabies weave through history. Personal becomes universal. Family stories become cultural memory. And somewhere in that weaving, the children slip into sleep, one by one, still listening, even in dreams. Miguel's the last one fighting, 8 years old and determined, but his eyes are heavy now. His head keeps drooping toward his shoulder. Abuela notices. Her voice gets even softer, more melody than words. The other adults know this signal. Time to carry sleeping children to beds. Time to tuck them in, still wearing their posadas clothes. Time to let them dream of processions and piñatas, of doors opening, of welcome, of belonging to something bigger than themselves. But Miguel whispers one more question. Will you remember tonight, Abuela? She pauses, looks around at her family, at Father Eduardo in the doorway, at the scattered joy of celebration still clinging to the walls. Oh, mijo, I'll remember, and someday, when you have little ones of your own, you'll sing them these same songs. Tell them these same stories about tonight, about all the nights. That's how it works. Memory becomes lullaby, lullaby becomes love, and question row down. Dem soul played quested, memory becomes love by. His eyes finally close, still smiling. The adults move carefully now, lifting sleeping children, whispering good nights. Father Eduardo slips away into the night, carrying the quiet with him, but Abuela stays in her chair, still humming, still rocking slightly. The mother of this family, the keeper of stories, the bridge between what was and what will be. Tomorrow they'll clean up. Tonight, tonight, tonight they just hold the sacred quiet. Let it fill all the spaces, celebration left behind. In bedrooms throughout the house, children dream of processions, of doors opening to welcome them, of songs that sound like prayers, and prayers that sound like lullabies. Their parents tuck blankets around small shoulders, kiss foreheads that still smell like celebration, check windows, turn off lights, but leave doors cracked open, so the quiet can flow through the house, so the peace can settle everywhere. So morning will find them wrapped in more than blankets, wrapped in belonging. And in the kitchen, where it all began 9 nights ago, the altar candles burn low. Mary and Joseph rest in their manger scene, their journey complete, their seeking ended in welcome. The chocolate pot sits empty on the stove, the tamale pot cooling, but something warm remains, something that doesn't cool or empty or burn out. The knowledge that doors opened tonight, that voices joined in ancient songs, that community happened, that tradition lived, that love multiplied when shared. Outside, December wind rustles the last paper flowers hanging from doorways throughout the neighborhood. Other families settling into their own sacred quiet. Other grandmothers humming other lullabies. Other children dreaming of processions and welcome. The great circle of Las Posadas closing gently for another year, but not really closing, just pausing, gathering strength, preparing to begin again, because some traditions never end. They just rest. They just wait. They just whisper themselves into tomorrow's dreams. Chapter 11, December 25th, A Christmas Morning. The sun rises different on Christmas, softer somehow, like the light itself knows this day matters. In Mexican homes across the country, families wake to something special hanging in the air. Not just the smell of café de olla brewing in clay pots, not just the lingering scent of last night's tamales. Something deeper, the Posada spirit. It doesn't just disappear when December 24th ends. It settles into Christmas morning like morning dew. Listen, can you hear it? That particular kind of quiet that only happens after something beautiful. The kind of silence that comes after 9 nights of singing, walking, sharing, 9 nights of community. The streets that echoed with En Nombre del Cielo just hours ago now hold a different energy, reverent, peaceful, like the whole neighborhood is taking a slow, grateful breath. This is what Christmas morning feels like when it's been properly prepared for. Children wake up differently today, not with the rushing excitement of unwrapping presents, though that'll come. They wake up tired in the best way, tired from 9 nights of adventure, tired from staying up late, watching candles flicker, listening to their grandmother's voice blend with their neighbors' voices. Their dreams are still full of luminarias and the sound of clay pots breaking. They stretch under blankets that still smell faintly of wood smoke and celebration. The kitchen tells the story of last night. Clay dishes stacked by the sink, still holding traces of mole and pozole. A few pieces of candy scattered on the counter, remnants from the piñata that exploded in pure joy just hours ago. the comal still warm from making fresh tortillas at midnight, and Sig Paul store the pinnacy have the bisware henbol from making fresh tortillas at midnight. And there, hanging from the ceiling, papel picado that caught the breeze from all that opening and closing of doors. Every surface holds memory. Mothers move through their homes with a particular kind of contentment this morning. They've done something important, not just fed their families, they've fed their community's soul. They've kept something alive that their grandmothers kept alive. The traditional songs are still humming in their heads as they start the coffee, Los Peregrinos playing on repeat in their hearts. This is how culture survives, one Christmas morning at a time. Fathers step outside to collect the newspapers, but they pause on their doorsteps. The street looks different in the Christmas morning light, more connected somehow. They remember which houses opened their doors last night, which neighbors they sang with, which children they watched break open piñatas together. The invisible threads between houses feel visible today, stronger, like the whole block became one extended family over the past 9 nights. The rhythm of life shifts. No rushing today, no schedules to keep. Christmas morning in Mexico moves like honey, slow and golden and sweet. Families gather around kitchen tables, not to eat quickly and leave, but to linger, to share dreams from last night, to plan which tia they'll visit first today, to let the peace of the season settle into their bones. Time feels different when you've properly celebrated Advent. You can still hear the songs if you listen carefully, not out loud, but echoing in the spaces between heartbeats. 9 nights of singing leaves its mark on a place. The melodies sink into walls, into memories, into the very air. Humildis Peregrinos whispers through screen doors. Children hum without realizing they're humming. The music has become part of the atmosphere, part of the blessing. This is where something beautiful happens. The Posadas tradition, it doesn't stay locked in Mexican culture. It spills over. Neighbors who aren't Mexican felt it too. They watched the processions pass their houses. They heard the singing. They smelled the food. They saw the kindness. And this Christmas morning, something in their hearts feels different too. Open somehow, like they caught a piece of the Spirit just by witnessing it. The scent of last night's feast still hangs in the air, not just in Mexican kitchens, but drifting through apartment hallways, through neighborhood streets. The smell of shared abundance, of doors opened and tables expanded, of recipes passed down and love ladled out. Other families smell it and remember their own traditions, their own ways of preparing for wonder. Food, it's the universal language of celebration. Churches prepare for Christmas morning Mass with a different kind of anticipation today. 9 nights of community prayer changes things. The pews will fill with people who've been walking together, singing together, searching together. They've practiced being pilgrims. They've learned what it means to seek shelter and find welcome. Now they come to celebrate, not as individuals, but as a community that's journeyed together through Advent. Gift giving feels different too. After 9 nights of the real gift, community, connection, shared story, the wrapped presents under Christmas trees carry deeper meaning. They're not just objects exchanged, but symbols of the generosity that's been flowing for over a week. The generosity of open doors, shared meals, patient listening. The presents are beautiful, but they're not the real treasure. The real treasure is what happened around all those doorways. This is how traditions stay alive and spread, not through force or preaching, but through beauty, through the kind of celebration that makes others stop and wonder, what are they doing over there, and why does it look so meaningful? the Posada's spirit becomes contagious. It reminds everyone that Christmas preparation can be more than shopping and decorating. It can be about walking together towards something sacred. As Christmas morning unfolds, the line between Mexican tradition and universal human longing blurs beautifully. Everyone understands the need for shelter. Everyone knows what it feels like to seek welcome and find rejection. Everyone has experienced the joy of finally being received with open arms. And the Posada's story isn't just Mexican, it's human. And on Christmas morning, that truth feels especially clear and tender. Children who participated in Posadas will grow up with something precious. They'll remember the feeling of walking through neighborhoods at night, carrying light, singing ancient songs. They'll remember the taste of ponche and the sound of piñatas breaking. But most importantly, they'll remember the lesson that preparing for something sacred takes time, community, and the willingness to keep knocking on doors until love answers. So Christmas morning settles into Mexico like a blessing that's been properly earned. 9 nights of pilgrimage have prepared hearts to receive the wonder. The celebration feels deeper, more rooted, more connected to something eternal. This is what happens when you don't rush toward Christmas, but walk slowly toward it, door by door, song by song, with your community holding candles beside you in the holy darkness. Chapter 12, Everlasting Echoes, Influence Beyond Borders. So here's what happens when traditions travel. Las Posadas doesn't stay put in Mexico. It crosses borders, settles into new communities, adapts, changes, survives. You see it in East LA, in San Antonio, in tiny towns across the Southwest, where Mexican families planted roots decades ago. Same songs, same door to door journey, but something different too, something uniquely theirs. The cleanup's happening back in Mexico. Piñata pieces swept up, candle wax scraped off doorsteps. But the echoes, they're just getting started. Because this tradition, it doesn't respect borders. Never did. Spanish colonists brought it to New Spain 3 centuries ago. Now it's spreading again. Different countries, different contexts, same human need for connection during the darkest time of year. Amazing how that works. California first. Los Angeles specifically. December nights here aren't bone cold like they are in central Mexico, but the processions still wind through neighborhoods. Boyle Heights, Pico Rivera. Families who've been here for generations mixing with families who arrived last month. The Spanish verses sound the same. The rejection at doors still stings a little. The final welcome still feels like coming home. What's wild is how it adapts. In LA, some families incorporate English verses now. Kids who speak more English than Spanish still sing along, still carry the farolitos, still knock on doors asking for posada. The tradition bends without breaking. That's actually the secret to its survival. Flexibility wrapped around an unchanging core. The journey matters more than the language you sing it in. Texas takes it further. San Antonio's Las Posadas goes citywide now. The Riverwalk lights up with processions. Mariachi bands join in. Tourists stop and stare, not quite understanding what they're witnessing. But the local families, they know. This is December identity. This is who we are when December gets dark and we need each other most. Public tradition serving private needs. Houston's different, more diverse. Las Posadas mixes with other traditions there. Central American families bring their own variations. Guatemalan touches, Salvadoran twists. The core stays the same, but the details, they multiply. New foods at the final feast, new songs mixed in, Immigration doesn't just preserve culture, it evolves it, makes it stronger through contact with, well, with everything else. But here's what gets me about all this spreading. It's not just Mexican families keeping Las Posadas alive anymore. Non Hispanic neighbors join in. Churches with mixed congregations adopt it. Community centers organize public processions. The tradition becomes bigger than its origin, more inclusive. That's not dilution, that's growth. That's culture doing what culture does best when it feels safe. New Mexico's had it longest outside Mexico itself. 400 years of Las Posadas in places like Santa Fe, old families, deep roots. Their version stays closer to the colonial original. Less adaptation, more preservation. Different strategy, same goal. Keep the tradition alive through consistency instead of change. Both approaches work, both matter. Different communities, different survival tactics. Arizona's interesting because the border's so close. Families in Tucson might celebrate Las Posadas on both sides of the line. Same week, same relatives. International tradition that ignores international boundaries. Mary and Joseph seeking shelter, they don't carry passports. The human story transcends politics, always has, probably always will. That's part of why these traditions matter so much. Colorado surprised me when I researched this. Denver's got growing Las Posadas celebrations now. Newer immigrant communities bringing older traditions to places that never had them before. High altitude December nights, snow instead of mild winter weather, but the processions still happen, the doors still open. Altitude doesn't change the human need for ritual, for community, for belonging somewhere. What binds all these celebrations together isn't the details, it's the emotional core. December isolation getting pushed back by community action. The same thing that started Las Posadas in colonial Mexico. Dark season, uncertain times, people needing people. The specific responses change by location, by generation, by circumstance. But the underlying human requirements, those stay constant. Community, ritual, hope, cultural continuity works like this. It's not about preserving everything exactly as it was. That's museum thinking. Real continuity adapts, survives, changes form while keeping function. Las Posadas in modern Los Angeles serves the same emotional and social needs as Las Posadas in 18th century Mexico City. Different world, same human hearts, seeking the same thing. Connection during disconnected times. Identity maintenance through ritual, this is how it works across cultures. You take the core story that matters most, the journey seeking shelter, the community response, the final welcome. You adapt the details to your current reality, but keep the emotional truth intact. Las Posadas becomes a way for Hispanic communities to say, we're still here, we're still us, no matter how far they travel. Unity comes from shared experience, not shared ancestry. When families of different backgrounds join Las Posadas processions, they're not appropriating culture, they're joining human community. The tradition becomes bigger, not smaller, more inclusive, not less authentic. That's how cultures survive in diaspora. They welcome connection while maintaining core identity. Balance, not easy, but possible. Future Las Posadas will look different than today's, different than yesterday's, different languages mixed in, new musical styles, modified traditions adapted to climate change, to urban density, to whatever comes next. But the core will remain the journey, the seeking, the doors that close, the door that opens, the feast that follows. Human needs don't change that fast. So the echoes keep spreading across borders, across generations, across cultural lines. Las Posadas plants itself in new soil and grows something familiar yet fresh: Mexican roots, American branches, universal fruit. The cleanup ends, but the influence continues. That's what living traditions do. They don't just survive the present, they create the future, one door at a time. Chapter 13: Reflection and Reverence, the Value of Tradition. The last candle flickers. Ninth night finished. Children asleep in their beds, still sticky from candy and warm from tamales. Adults clearing dishes in kitchens that smell like cinnamon and chocolate. And in this quiet moment, when the songs fade and the doors close, something deeper settles in. Something about what just happened to this community over these 9 nights. You see it in how neighbors look at each other now. Different than before December started, like they've shared something sacred together, which they have. 9 nights of opening doors, 9 nights of saying no, then yes, 9 nights of remembering that 2,000 years ago, a young couple knocked on doors just like these families did tonight. Mary and Joseph seeking shelter. It's the story everyone knows, but here's what hits different when you've just spent 9 nights reenacting it. You realize how personal rejection feels, how relief floods through you when someone finally says yes, how being welcomed changes everything about a moment. The families doing Las Posadas, they feel that emotional arc in their bodies. And watch a grandmother's face when she opens her door to the pilgrims, when she gets to be the one who says, "Come in, you're safe here." That smile, it's not performance, it's pure joy. The joy of being able to offer something precious: shelter, warmth, acceptance, the very thing Mary and Joseph needed most. And the children absorb this. They learn that their voices matter when they sing outside those doors. They learn that generosity feels good when they share ponche and buñuelos. They learn that being patient pays off when that final door opens to music and laughter and more food than anyone could possibly eat. But here's the thing about Las Posadas that keeps me thinking. It's not about grand gestures, not about perfect hospitality or expensive gifts. It's about small moments of recognition. One human seeing another human's need and responding with whatever they have, even if that's just a warm greeting and a cup of coffee. Mexican families have been doing this for centuries, through revolutions and migrations, through poverty and prosperity, through times when opening your door to strangers felt dangerous and times when it felt natural. The tradition bends, adapts, survives, because the core message never gets old. People need each other. Community matters. Kindness costs nothing. Think about the timing, too. Las Posadas happens in December, darkest time of year, when people feel isolated, when family tensions run high, when money gets tight and spirits get low. And into this darkness, these families create light, literally with candles, figuratively with connection. 9 nights of choosing togetherness over separation. The psychological impact is real. Researchers study this stuff now. How ritual and repetition create community bonds, how shared stories build empathy, how taking turns being vulnerable, asking for help, and being generous creates social fabric that holds neighborhoods together. Las Posadas does all of that naturally, but the families participating, they're not thinking about psychology. They're thinking about their kids learning the songs, about their neighbor's tamales recipe, about whether they have enough chairs for everyone, about ordinary moments that somehow become sacred when you do them together, when you do them with intention, when you do them with love. The beauty of tradition is how it carries wisdom without lecturing. Kids don't get a lesson about empathy, they feel what rejection sounds like. They experience what acceptance looks like. They taste the sweetness that comes after patience. They learn with their whole bodies what hospitality means. Memory gets stored deeper that way. And every year, the tradition grows richer, new families join, new stories get woven in, children become adults who teach their own children the songs. Grandparents watch great grandchildren carry candles down the same streets they walked decades ago. Time collapses, past and present blur together in candlelight and celebration. This is what survives when everything else changes, not the specific foods or exact words, but the feeling, the knowledge that you belong somewhere, that your community will catch you if you fall, that doors will open for you when you need them most, that generosity creates more generosity, that love multiplies when shared. Las Posadas ends, but its effects ripple forward. Through January, when someone needs help moving, through March, when a family faces crisis, through summer, when kids remember the joy of singing together. The tradition plants seeds that bloom all year long, small acts of grace that echo the first Christmas story. So as you drift toward sleep tonight, maybe carry this with you, the image of doors opening, of voices raised in song, of tables stretching to fit one more person, of children learning that the world can be kind, of adults remembering why community matters, of ordinary December nights becoming extraordinary through shared ritual. Las Posadas whispers the same message every year. You are not alone. You are seen. You are welcomed. There is room at the table. There is space by the fire. There is always, always room for one more. And sometimes that's exactly what a weary heart needs to hear. Sleep well. Dream of open doors. Chapter 14, A Tradition Rewritten. Las Posadas Today, December 2023, Mexico City. The same songs echo through the streets that echoed 400 years ago. But something's different now. The houses are different. The people are different. Even the reasons why they sing have shifted. This isn't about tradition dying. It's about tradition breathing, adapting, surviving in ways the Spanish missionaries never could have imagined. And that's where our story gets complicated. Walk through any Mexican neighborhood in December, and you'll see it. Kids with smartphones documenting their posada procession for Instagram. Abuelas teaching the traditional songs to grandchildren who learned English first. Modern apartment complexes where the whole building participates. Same ritual, different world. The question isn't whether Las Posadas has changed. Of course it has. The question is, does that matter? Does adaptation mean death or evolution? Some families now do virtual posadas over Zoom. Sounds weird, right? Pandemic necessity became digital tradition. Relatives scattered across continents, singing together through screens. The symbolic journey for shelter happening in pixels and Wi Fi connections. But here's what surprised researchers. Families said it felt just as meaningful. Distance didn't diminish the ritual, it expanded it. Mary and Joseph's journey, crossing not just neighborhoods, but time zones. In Los Angeles, second generation Mexican Americans are reimagining the whole thing. They keep the 9 nights, keep the songs, but now they're singing about modern pilgrims seeking shelter, immigrants, refugees, the homeless, same theological framework, different applications. Joseph and Mary become symbols for anyone searching for welcome in an unwelcoming world. The ritual stays alive by staying relevant. Ancient story, contemporary pain, timeless hope. But not everyone's happy about these changes. Traditional Catholic communities worry about dilution, sacred becoming secular, religious ceremony becoming cultural performance. They have a point. When you strip away the Christian theology, is it still Las Posadas? Or just a really elaborate block party? The tension is real. Old guardians of tradition watching younger generations reshape something that felt untouchable, sacred, fixed. Then there's the commercial creep. Piñata factories producing Disney themed versions alongside traditional stars. Party supply stores selling posada kits with plastic candles and recorded music. Amazon delivering instant tradition to your doorstep. Some families embrace the convenience, others see it as selling their souls to capitalism. The same forces that transformed Christmas are now reshaping Las Posadas. Progress or pollution depends who you ask. Here's what I find fascinating: the core remains unchanged. 9 nights, songs of seeking, doors that close, then one that opens, feast afterward. The skeleton of the ritual survives everything else. Language changes, locations change, decorations change, but the fundamental pattern persists. Maybe that's what tradition actually is. Not the surface details, but the deep structure, the bones that everything else builds on, the DNA of celebration. In rural Oaxaca, Las Posadas looks almost identical to colonial descriptions. Same adobe houses, same hand-carved nativity scenes, same recipes passed down through generations. Time moves slower there. Change comes gentler. But even in these traditional strongholds, cell phones capture the procession. Social media shares the celebration. Global connectivity touches even the most isolated traditions. No place is truly immune to the modern world. American suburbs present their own challenges. HOA regulations about noise and gatherings, neighbors who don't understand the significance, kids embarrassed by their family's weird traditions. Some families adapt by scaling down, private posadas with an extended family only. Others go bigger, turning it into neighborhood education, teaching non-Mexican families about the meaning behind the ritual. Cultural ambassadors through celebration, bridge building one song at a time. Youth participation tells the real story of tradition's future. Teenagers who roll their eyes but still show up. College students who suddenly miss Las Posadas when they're away from home. Young adults who swore they'd never continue the tradition until they have kids of their own. The cycle repeats, but never identically. Each generation adds their own interpretation while keeping the essential elements alive. COVID changed everything, then changed it back. 2020 meant tiny family-only posadas, masked carolers, socially distanced piñatas. The ritual bent but didn't break. By 2022, communities were celebrating harder than ever. Makeup celebrations, gratitude for gathering. The pandemic reminded people what they missed when tradition was taken away. Sometimes you don't know what you have until it's threatened. Sometimes crisis strengthens what it should have weakened. Museums now showcase Las Posadas as cultural heritage. Schools teach it as multicultural education. Universities study it as anthropological artifact. When tradition becomes academic subject, something shifts. It gains respect, but loses intimacy. Public recognition, but private dilution. The double edge of cultural preservation. Success in one arena sometimes means failure in another. Celebration becomes performance. Sacred becomes studied. Living becomes categorized. But maybe that's too pessimistic. Maybe scholarly attention brings new life. Graduate students rediscovering their grandparents' traditions through research. Professors incorporating family practices into curriculum, academic validation encouraging cultural pride, young people finding their way back to rituals they'd abandoned. Sometimes the long path through institutions leads back home. Sometimes analysis deepens appreciation rather than destroying it. The melancholy comes from knowing we're witnessing transformation in real time. The Las Posadas your great grandmother knew is gone. The version your grandchildren will know hasn't been born yet. We're living in the bridge generation, keepers of memory and architects of change, responsible for both preserving and adapting. It's a heavy responsibility, beautiful and terrifying at once. The weight of cultural continuity. Yet there's excitement too. New communities discovering Las Posadas for the first time, interfaith families creating hybrid celebrations, artists using the ritual as inspiration for contemporary work. The tradition spreading beyond its original boundaries, taking root in unexpected soil. Not replacement, but expansion. Not death, but birth. New shoots growing from ancient roots. The story isn't ending, it's just changing chapters. As we close this journey through 9 nights of seeking and finding, remember this: traditions don't survive by staying identical, they survive by staying meaningful. Las Posadas has meant different things across 5 centuries. Colonial conversion tool, community celebration, cultural identity marker, family bonding ritual. The meaning evolves because humans evolve, but the need for welcome, for shelter, for celebration, that's timeless. That's what keeps the candles burning. Chapter 15, Curtains of Dawn, the cycle of celebration. Here we are, 9 nights behind us. The candles have burned down to pools of wax. The last posada ended hours ago, but something lingers in the air, this feeling that it's not really over, because it never is it? Las Posadas doesn't end. It just pauses, waits, like seeds buried in winter soil, waiting for next December to bloom again. There's something beautiful about that kind of patience. Think about it. Every year, the same doors, the same songs, Mary and Joseph walking the same streets they've walked for centuries, but never quite the same because the people change. Children grow up, new families move in. Someone who sang along as a kid now holds their own baby, teaching the words. The tradition carries forward, carried by different hands each time, like a river that's always flowing, but never the same water twice. There's this moment, right before dawn on Christmas morning. The 9th night is over. The celebrations have quieted. Most people are asleep, dreaming of tamales and piñata candy. But if you step outside, you can feel it, this sense of completion, not ending, but completing, like the final note of a song that hangs in the air, just long enough to remind you why you needed to hear it in the first place. Las Posadas teaches us something about time, not clock time, but human time, the kind that moves in circles instead of straight lines. Each December, we step back into this ancient rhythm. We become part of something that started long before us and will continue long after. There's comfort in that, knowing your place in the great wheel of celebration, knowing you're not the first to sing these songs, won't be the last either. The doors that said no tonight, they'll open next year. The families who welcome strangers, they'll do it again. Children who watched wide-eyed from doorways will grow up to carry candles. Teenagers who rolled their eyes at the old songs will find themselves humming them decades later, teaching them to their own kids. This is how culture survives, not in museums or books, but in living rooms and front porches and kitchen tables. I keep thinking about those Spanish missionaries from centuries ago. They wanted to create something lasting, something that would root their faith in New World soil. But what they actually created, it's bigger than they imagined. They created a way for communities to find each other in the dark, a reason to open doors, a ritual that turns strangers into neighbors, neighbors into family. That's the real miracle of Las Posadas. The procession ends, but the walking continues, not with candles and song anymore, just regular life, but somehow different, because for 9 nights you practiced something. You practiced hospitality. You practiced patience. You practiced being part of something larger than yourself. Those lessons don't disappear when you blow out the candles. They settle in, become part of how you move through the world, until next December calls you back to the streets. There's magic in repetition. The same words, year after year, the same journey, door to door. Some people think ritual gets stale, loses its power. But watch a grandmother's face when she hears those first notes of Un Nombre del Cielo. Watch kids who've never seen a posada before, catching on to the rhythm. Repetition doesn't drain the magic, it concentrates it, like wine aging in a barrel, getting richer with time. The sun's coming up now. Christmas Day, the formal celebration is over, but families are still gathered, still sharing food, still telling stories. The energy has shifted from anticipation to satisfaction, from seeking shelter to having found it. But already someone's mind is wandering to next year, wondering if the new family on the corner will join the procession, if little Miguel will be old enough to carry a candle. The cycle turns. This is what traditions do. They give us something to return to, a home base in time. No matter how crazy life gets, how much the world changes, December comes around and there's Las Posadas waiting. The same but different, familiar but fresh, like putting on your favorite sweater after it's been packed away all summer. It still fits, but you've changed a little too, and that's perfect. The piñatas are broken now, candy scattered and collected. The nativity scene sits quietly in someone's living room, Mary and Joseph finally at rest after their long journey. But the real nativity that's still happening in every act of welcome, every door opened to a stranger, every shared meal, every moment when someone who was outside finds themselves inside, part of the circle, that birth keeps happening over and over. Morning light filters through windows where candles flickered last night. The streets are quiet now, empty of processions, but if you know what to look for, you can still see traces. A few flower petals on a doorstep, candle wax hardened on the sidewalk, children's footprints in soft dirt where they ran to keep up with the adults, small signs that something sacred passed this way, evidence of celebration, proof of community. There's a Spanish word, convivencia. It means living together, not just existing in the same space, but actively sharing life, creating community through presence and participation. That's what Las Posadas creates, not just for 9 nights, but all year long. Because once you've walked those streets together, sung those songs together, shared those meals together, you're connected. The neighborhood becomes something different, something warmer. The beautiful thing about cycles, they always come back, but they never come back exactly the same. Each year adds new layers, new faces, new stories woven into the old ones. Las Posadas isn't preserved like something in amber. It's alive, growing, changing just enough to stay relevant while holding onto what makes it eternal. That balance, that's the secret of traditions that last centuries instead of decades. So as the sun rises on Christmas morning, as families linger over breakfast, kids playing with new toys, Adults already planning next year's celebration, remember this: you've just witnessed something rare, a tradition that builds community instead of dividing it, that creates belonging instead of exclusion, that turns the winter dark into something warm and bright. That's worth carrying forward, worth protecting, worth celebrating again next December when the songs begin. The curtains close on our Las Posadas journey, but really, they're just opening for someone else. Somewhere tonight, a family is planning their first posada. Somewhere, children are learning the songs. Somewhere, doors are preparing to open. The cycle continues. The celebration never really ends. It just waits patiently for December to come around again. And when it does, the candles will be lit, the songs will be sung, the journey will begin again. Sweet dreams.